You mentioned knowledge, and I hear a lot of different definitions for that word.
Yeah,
I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing your definition for knowledge.
yeah. Okay, so that one tends to be a like a simple concept on the outside, but actually defining knowledge can be a bit difficult because it gets twisted in um, with knowledge that we thought was true but isn't. So I think for it, I'll go fairly basic. Knowledge is the confidence. Not quite. Ooh, so it gets a little tricky. Um,
Cool. Thanks for stopping.
yeah,
You said your name was Nicky?
yeah, Nicky.
How do you spell your first name? Nicky.
Nicky.
CKY. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I
Cool.
typically go by.
Cool. It's good to meet you, Nicky.
Yeah,
My name's David.
yeah.
And what we're doing out here is interviewing folks in the community about something that you think is true, something that is meaningful to you.
Yeah.
And my job is to ask questions from a neutral perspective
Sure.
so that we can explore how you arrived at the conclusion and what supports your confidence that it's true.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
So totally get into it.
And you're okay if we record?
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Cool. Thanks again. So, there's something on your mind you want to talk about?
Oh, gracious. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about passion.
Passion?
I really want to talk about passion.
Are you
Yeah.
passionate about passion?
Yeah. Yeah, actually a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
I
What's your definition of passion?
That's good. Okay. Passion, kind of just on the offhand, I would say passion is the fire or spirit to do something past the minimum requirements.
Like above and beyond kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Do you have an example of something that you're passionate about?
Oh yeah, I'm very passionate about science and particularly biology.
Okay.
I'm very passionate about cooperation among exploration and research and findings, and I love that syncing up of people's knowledge and sharing. I think it's super important, especially to science. It can be difficult sometimes when you're going through different knowledge systems and you spend a lot of time learning terms and concepts and going through at first what seems like the motions, but a lot of what's brought you here is very simple ideas typically from when you're a child. I love that when people are able to explore um, basic concepts. Like, I want to be outside when I work, right? I want to be outside. And then you learn later it's field work that I want to do. That will have me be outside. And I want to do research out in the field. Oh my gosh, this research out in the field, what do I need for that? And you come to college and you go to the advisors, you go to the people that have been out in the field, and you go, that's something I want to do. You point at it. And that's where I think passion really comes into play, is it gets you started and happy and just like, this is something I want to do. And you show people that, and they want to do a little bit more for that. It's very simple at first, it seems like, much like a seed when it germinates. And as you start going through the hard work that it is, the papers to write, the corrections that you have constantly, for me, it's been passion that sees me through. It's been passion that I see others go through to accomplish that very simple childhood goal of, I just want to be outside.
Okay. Sounds like you're very passionate about science,
Yes.
learning,
Mm-hmm.
and doing work outside.
Yeah. I've been wanting to do that since I was a kid, personally, and I find a lot of connection with other people who have passions about other parts of science. You know, like I can tell somebody who's really passionate about geology, they'll just start getting into rocks. You know, they won't even assess my own like experience with rocks. And I'll just start being like, oh man, that basalt, huh? And then they'll just be like, oh yeah! And then I'll get like super into it. I'm like, whoa, man, train left the station. And I'll have to, I'll have to use my social skills to be like, oh man, I'm not quite at that level yet, but I do want to hear what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
You mentioned knowledge, and I hear a lot of like different definitions for that word.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing your definition for knowledge.
Yeah. Okay, so that one tends to be like a simple concept on the outside, but actually defining knowledge can be a bit difficult, because it gets twisted in um, with knowledge that we thought was true but isn't. So I think for it, I'll go fairly basic. Knowledge is the confidence. Not quite. Ooh, so it gets a little tricky. Um, it is that which we know to a degree that we are confident and certain.
What we know that we're confident and certain about?
Yeah. Yeah.
What we know.
Yeah. And I used part of the word in the definition, so I'll go into more into know. That is, I would say, that is truth, facts, or I would even lump data in there too. Let's put data in there, or data that we have acquired or accumulated as we learn and age.
The accumulation of truth, facts, and data?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to distinguish, so truth, I think, is separate from facts and data, because data tends to be raw, quantitative, and sometimes qualitative things that we know to be true, that we've shared again and again and again, that we have verified. Very simple things. This is a hand. Why do I know this is a hand? Well, I've seen thousands of hands, and constantly people have said, that's a hand. And I've also agreed, that's a hand, that's a hand, that's a hand. And we do it again and again and again. That is the one point of data is hand. And then I share that with somebody else within science, very basically. And then they look at it and they go, yeah, no, that's a hand. And it becomes so known that we can build off of that more and get more specific. Those are fingers. That's one finger. And that's data. Facts are the hand does such. It's the application of data. And truth is the part where it gets a lot more squishy, especially for science, because that's when you get into concepts that are more individualistic. And that's the that can be a tricky one sometimes, because it's what somebody saw to be based on the data and the facts that can be different than what others saw to be with data and facts.
Quick question about the hand.
Yeah.
What's the best way to know that that's a hand?
I think it's by starting out with a little bit of learning from others, and then attempting to say, that's a hand. And then with others going, okay, so that's a hand. And they go, I don't know. What do you think makes it a hand?
Mm-hmm.
And those are your peers typically. And you go, well, it's got 5 fingers, and it stops here at like this point at the arm, and that's a hand, right? And then they confer with it themselves, and they're like, okay, yeah, I remember in school he had 5 fingers, stops at the arm, hand, yeah. And then trying that against the more difficult scenarios. Let's say my hand has only 4 fingers. Mm-hmm. Oh, shoot.
Is it still a hand?
Is it still a hand, right? Well, then I confer with my colleagues again. It's very, very highly scientific. I go, I think that's still a hand. Even though it's missing a finger, I think that finger is missing because it was torn off, or because the person wasn't born with it. And even though it wasn't, it doesn't have the features I'm normally used to, with that explanation attached onto it, I think that qualifies this still as a hand. And you go through that a bunch of times with other people, or in rare circumstances with yourself, because there are no other colleagues that specialize in hand, right? And you have to, at least at an institution of learning, you have to be okay being wrong. Let's say I accidentally misidentify a foot as a hand. I'm like, those look like 5 fingers, right? And they go, no. Those are toes. We learned that. And yeah, okay, fine. I think I'm wrong.
Okay. Am I hearing correctly that the best way to know that that's a hand is confirming with others?
Yeah.
So confirming with others is the best way to know that a hand is a hand.
Yes. That is, especially in science, that's top notch. That's when you have other people approximately on your level who've done, about as much as you've done in the field, and you are able to bring the data and facts and propose your truth. That is a hand.
Could that method lead to false conclusions?
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time. That's why when somebody, 100 years down the line goes, oh, wait a minute, I think we've been getting hands a little bit wrong. That's why it's good that there are people out there that will like the underdog conclusion and will be like, hey, I think actually that isn't a hand, and this is why. And then you have like debates that will occur over time. Hopefully don't blow out into arguments. We don't like that. That's when everybody becomes so entrenched they're unwilling to even listen to that's not a hand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gotcha. So learning from others can lead to false conclusions, but
Yep.
that's the best way to know certain things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the hand metaphor, analogy probably, is best for those concepts which you do have peers for. If you don't have peers, then you typically have literature. If you don't have literature, and that is not coming to what you're doing, then all you really have is observation and those peers that are like the closest, but they'll probably defer to you on that. And that's where you get into the topic of like exploration. What is that? That's typically based on mostly truth and qualitative facts. You don't have as much data there. You could just say, whoa, hello. Let's say nobody's ever seen a foot before, right? You're like, it looks like a hand, but it's not a hand. And this is why it's not a hand.
And you need other people to confirm those conclusions
Yeah.
in order to be closest to what the truth is about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned earlier, especially in a learning environment, that it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah.
Why is it okay to be wrong? Or why does that? Maybe you can kind of talk me through that.
I can hit you right through that.
Yeah.
So I've this comes from a lot of personal experience because I've gone through the I can't be wrong because, and that statement, although not necessarily wrong in the context, can be limiting. If you constantly refuse the idea of being wrong, then there is no possibility that you can learn from the experience if you are. And, there. Oh gosh, sorry. Let me circle back around. That one kind of led to a dead end.
Sure.
But the importance of recognizing that wrong can happen is in that if you are wrong, if the data is not lining up with your conclusion, with the facts that you think are solid, with the truth that you've compiled from those facts and data, then you've built your truth and facts on sand, like a house. If you build your house on sand, you're probably building on failure. You haven't built on a good foundation. And eventually, most likely, when the truth really isn't lining up with anything out there, then it will collapse. It will be seen later down the road as a very false dead end that led people down a goose chase.
Not having the ability to be wrong is like building a weak foundation.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Because not one person can know it all. That's an obvious thing, right? And if that's true, then if you were to even be 1% wrong all of the time, then the house you have built yourself on has a 1% error somewhere. And you'll never be able to find it because that's your blind spot. That's assuming the person is right all the time, just about.
Not being open to be wrong is a blind spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What can you not be wrong about?
See, that's where we get more into the practical side of things. This is why being in the scientific theoretical space, it tends to be a lot safer. Because when you are constantly conferring with colleagues about things that are theoretical, and you don't necessarily have to be the one that links them up to practical application. Let's say, for example, we go back to the hand, and I'm constantly conferring with colleagues about this one hand, right? But I have a deadline to determine whether or not this is a hand. That deadline means at some point I need to determine hand, yes or no. And in the theoretical space, that deadline tends to be way out here. It's determined typically a lot farther away and with more colleagues. I have the time, the space, the application to call up other colleagues and then send them pictures of this hand, send them stuff of this hand. When it comes to more practical applications, when I have to be constantly in the field, and there are people telling me that I have these deadlines to determine this thing, I am more prone to errors. I have less time to confer with colleagues. I have less time to confirm my own data. I have less time to gather the resources that I know I need, because that resource of money and time are so limited that the ideal is not possible.
Okay. Maybe I can rephrase my question.
Oh.
Is there anything that you cannot be wrong about?
I would say any project where human lives are at stake and large portions of the human future are at stake.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's where, like, the I think medicine is probably the easiest one to point at. If I have somebody on, like, a table and I'm performing surgery, that's a point where it's...
Oh, where you don't want to be wrong about it.
Yeah. I can. This is probably more of a personal thing, but I cannot be wrong where I do not want to be wrong, because where I do not want to be wrong is when somebody else's safety is at stake.
That's like a preference thing, that you would not want to be wrong in that situation.
Yeah.
I'm asking, is there any current conclusion that you hold that you cannot be wrong about?
Oh, okay. Something so that I'm confident in. Science cannot describe everything.
Okay, that's a conclusion that you have that you cannot be wrong about.
Yeah.
Do you have a way to tell if you were wrong?
I would say probably the easiest and most impossible indicator is if every scientist in the world agreed consistently on topics immediately. Like, just like everything all at once. That would be, with the 8 billion human minds that we have, if even 1% of them were scientists, I would bet my two front teeth that they couldn't agree on a single topic that I would consider broad.
So if you woke up tomorrow and all of science had consensus on every topic,
Yep.
that would cause you to lower your confidence in the claim that there's nothing that you cannot be wrong about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would blow away, like, most of the foundations of science. Because it's... Yeah, no, that would. Because, like, humans use science as a tool, a concept, a tool and a concept. And part of it is the ability to be wrong and to discover new things based off of being wrong. Because when you're right, you don't typically discover something new. It's you have, your basic hypothesis set up and your research set up, and you're like, man, I think I'm going to find this thing. And then you confirm that you're right. And then you give it to other colleagues, and they're like, yep, we think you did it right. Awesome. You learned one thing. When you're wrong, and you do it wrong, and you're able to spot those little wrong things, you can determine, next time you can put in your conclusion, oh, okay, next time, this is what could be done better. Or we determined our hypothesis was wrong because of, and you get to learn more and branch out more.
You learn more when you find out when you're wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you using what other people say as your strongest method to arrive at truth?
Oh, so that one is a personal problem that I find. Not always. Um,
But for some things.
Something, yes, I try to have it be for most things.
Okay.
Honestly.
Why is that a good reason to be convinced of anything?
Because the truth that I have, I understand to be mostly my own. I construct it mostly myself. You know, and it's based on facts and it's based on data. That's awesome. But if somebody somewhere else is finding something different, or even just my colleagues around me are going, no, I don't think that's like that. It's typically because the data and facts that they are looking at are coming to a separate conclusion, typically for a reason. You know, they typically will point it out and say, well, you know, I don't quite think it's like that because of. And then we get to match up our reasons together and go and weigh them out and see, you know, which one quite works, which one like doesn't.
Okay. Can you think of an example of when that would not be a good method to arrive at truth?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, there have been instances where most people have been wrong in a class that I've been in. Um, yeah, no, totally. Where the instructor was like, okay, so, you know, I'm putting in these samples of a thing, test your skills to say, key it out, right? That can be a difficult thing for people, and has been difficult for me in that odd transition, excuse me, where I'm becoming more confident with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to take my time a lot, so that tends to be where a lot of my confidence comes from.
Okay.
And I have totally been right where many people around me were wrong, and my personal confidence comes if I have a reason. You know, did I supply a reason and then compare it to that other person's? Because if they just tell me, no, you're wrong, what am I going to do with that? Oh, I'm wrong, but why? And and when it comes from peers like that, I personally don't typically take them at their word. Because if you don't give me a rationale, how can I personally improve if I am wrong? And how have you proven that I'm wrong? You haven't. You've just said you're wrong.
There's sometimes when taking what other people say is a reliable method to arrive at what's likely true.
Yeah.
There's sometimes when that's not reliable.
Yep.
How do you decide when to use it and when not to?
Oh boy, most of the time it's based on how much respect I have for the person that I'm working with.
Okay.
Do they work similarly to me, and have they improved my own methods? Do they allow me to talk to them about their methods? And can we line our methods up in such a manner that we have a basis for determining each other's rightness or wrongness in the scenario?
So the way you decide when to use that method is based on the amount of respect you have from the person giving you the information.
Yeah.
Okay.
So probably on like a scale of like 0 to 5, 0 being they just say you're wrong. That 0 respect. I'm in a field where saying that sort of thing is not safe. It just isn't safe. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as you get into the mentality, which I have personally had before, where I just go, no, you're wrong. You know, you're typically very emotionally frustrated, your logic isn't clicking, and you just don't want any more to deal with it. No, you're wrong.
It's just like an assertion type thing.
Yeah, and you can feel over multiple times of that happening to you, you could feel your brain locking up. You don't want to be wrong, so much so that you are unwilling to hear, I think you're wrong,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's done gently, even if it's done in the nicest manner. That's leads to, it typically doesn't lead to collaboration. It typically leads to arguments and fighting. And in that arena, that gets away from science application because it becomes the arena of basing the other person on being wrong without using um, the new data or facts that they are thinking that you are wrong on.
Mm-hmm. I just have one more question.
Yeah.
Um, when you talk to people that cannot be wrong about something
Yeah.
or claim to not be able to be wrong about something,
Yeah.
what's your best approach with talking to somebody like that?
Yeah. So part of this, I honestly will base off of the times that I've been in that state. And oh boy, the first approach I go with is I make sure that my energy level is down. My volume is a little bit lower. Okay, I'm not going to meet your aggression with my aggression as long as I'm able to think of the steps of slowly bringing the conversation down a notch. Because when you're working with passionate people, they tend to have met obstacles in their life that they've had to break through in this manner. So let's lower the energy level down.
Keeping your emotions in check.
Open body language. I'll immediately try to switch to more relaxed. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to collaborate with you, and you meet the person with as much respect as you can muster. Usually with past interactions where you're like, no, this is not usually them. Usually they're more collaborative than this. There's probably something else going on here. And I've this is the part where it typically goes depending on the person that you're talking to, but going, okay, is everything okay? Is I
Kind of checking in.
yeah, checking in as best as you can, or taking a little bit of a reset, um, saying, hey, I think we need a break from this. Those can be nice key words, but if somebody's so locked up into having to be right, um, it can be best to take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
Take a step back, walk outside, clear your head.
Okay.
I've had to build this in for myself, and that's how I want to treat colleagues and have colleagues treat me, is that there are some trigger words we need to build into our language to have us take a step away from our work. We get so emotionally invested, and we love it, and we want it. But if we have to be right every single time, we've gone away from research. We've gone away from collaboration. We've gone into not using our prefrontal cortex as much and going to the further back reaches of our mind where we have we've created a fight or flight scenario, this binary situation that does not typically lead to success.
Okay. So one way to kind of approach a conversation with someone that can't be wrong, just keeping your energy level down,
Yep.
keeping your emotions in check,
Yep.
come from a place of collaboration, and then if it
Yeah.
gets too heated, take a break.
Yeah. Take a step out, clear your head. That's what I found that works when it does. And hopefully, if worst comes to worst and they're not responding to those keys that are hopefully built more into your brain, like muscle memory, where there's this little ping inside of your head that goes, hey, yeah, let's go outside.
Mhm.
And it'll be weird because you'll just start walking outside and you'll just be like, oh yeah, I like feel better out here for some reason, and you'll feel yourself untwist, and you'll be like, man, I was like, ooh, I might have been a bit intense there. Might have gotten really locked up.
Mhm.
And that contrast of feeling is part of what can help trigger a next response. A little bit of feeling of shame that can happen, and that can then help lead back to cooperation, where you come back in and you're like, man, I'm really sorry. I don't know what was going on there. I feel like a jerk.
Mhm.
Can we go over that again? And then as the person who is dealing with the person who was just locked up, forgiving. Yeah. Having gone through those scenarios really helps, because you have been there and you want to lend that other person a hand to coming back to the space that is collaborative again. Yeah, so the reason I thought you were wrong, and you continue to put in a little bit more effort to be softer again until both of you start to come back to a rhythm. And if that pattern of behavior continues, then yeah, probably it's time to shut it down for the day. It's probably, or do busy work, setting up and doing stuff that comes away from that high thinking space, that space where you need to put a lot of energy into it.
Cool. Well, that was great. Nicky, you have any questions?
Oh, yeah. How's the YouTube channel? I'm curious about it now.
Yeah, I've been doing it a little over a year now, practicing what's called street epistemology.
Okay.
And that's basically a way to have a conversation that's collaborative,
Yeah.
keeping, your emotions in check,
Yeah.
taking a break when we need to,
Yeah.
and really exploring the quality of the reasons somebody uses to be confident in something that they think is true
Yeah.
in a cordial way.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about. If you see the board there, there's a QR code. You can scan it. That takes you right to the YouTube channel if you want to check it out.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This is actually something that I've been thinking about a lot lately as I come back from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with the government's description of when COVID ends right now.
Right.
But it personally, I will say that when COVID happened, I stopped going to Evergreen, and I did that keep my family safe, keep myself safe, and it was sucky that I couldn't go back to school, to say the least.
Because you're passionate. You're passionate about learning.
I love it here. I love learning. I love collaborating, and I'd love someday to go to other institutions to see how they do it, and the goods and the bads there. But putting your education on hold for like 2 to 3 years sucks. I can tell you that much, because I was in the middle of being with colleagues and developing a repertoire, and then all of that got disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, gosh, dang it. And I kicked myself in the butt, because a lot of those social skills that we learn, it's by working physically with other colleagues. I love doing that.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And
Well, I'd invite you, if you go to my channel, all of the videos that I have, there'll be some links in there.
Yeah.
There's a link to a community of us that do this,
yeah.
and other groups and stuff. So
Oh, yeah.
if you're into it, definitely check that out, and we'll see you around.
Yeah, and if you ever want to do an interview again, I love these.
It's really coming down.
That's been great. If you see us out here again, definitely, we'd love to have you.
Sweet. Yeah.
Cool.
I mean,
We'll be back tomorrow, earlier in the day. So
yeah.
yeah. And if you have somebody that they might enjoy having an interview like this.
Oh, yeah. I love linking people up with stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's
Cool.
great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
It was good to meet you.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Yeah, you as well. And like I said, check out the links and stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Oh, I have a question. You guys are in the media section of things here, right? Got a little bit of a finger on the vein, huh?
Social media?
Oh, no, just like the media.
Part of the school, we're just hanging out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We go all
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. Man, have you guys ever hear of somebody who's interested in doing not still photography, but gosh dang it, I always forget the name of it. Most need it. Taken over time, but then
Time lapse?
accelerated. Thank you, time lapse. Yeah. If you ever have somebody who's like really, really good at time lapse, please let me know. It's not the most urgent. I've just been looking.
Hit me up on the channel and remind me,
Yeah.
and we'll figure something out.
just like you guys talked about pretty much everything.
Yeah. No. You want to talk about?
If you just turn your camera on.
Yeah. Wait a minute, David. I think we have another one.
There we go. Wonderful. Yeah, you guys will be my first QR code. Thank you.
Hey. All right. How's your day going?
Oh, it's going good so far. I used to was an EF student as an international student here.
Oh, okay.
But it's been a couple